be our webinar for today. Today, we will review how to prepare your Unreal build, how to create a free account on Eagle 3D, how to upload your Unreal build, how to stream your Unreal build. And if you have any questions in the moment, please use the chat in Zoom or raise your hand function. This is located at the bottom right of your Zoom panel under reactions. And if you don't have any questions in the moment, please feel free to wait at the end of the session when we have our Q&A. And now I'll turn it over to Quintin.
Thank you very much, Monique, and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining. Today's workshop is, as Monique mentioned, that we are going to get your builds into Eagle's platform and streaming in the next hour. Let's keep this, very informal and friendly, and of course, the whole point is to make sure that we get you answers to any of your questions and that you are comfortable with the entire streaming process. So I will begin. We'll start from working in Editor, and then at the end of this workshop, you should be streaming your application through a browser. Okay, I am going to share my screen, and let's start taking a look. Okay, so here we are in Editor, and I'm just starting here so that we can sort of know the entire process beginning to start on how to upload your Unreal Engine application. Okay, the first thing that we'll need to do, of course, is to package our project. But before we package, the most important thing when you're packaging your project is, of course, to make sure that the pixel streaming plugin is enabled. The way that I can do this is when I'm in Editor and I'm in 5.3, I just click on Edit, I go to Plugins, and then I type in pixel streaming. And when I type in pixel streaming, I'll see two options. The one that you should select in order to stream your build is the first option, which says pixel streaming. So all I do is just check this box, which I've already done. And usually when you check this box, it will Unreal Engine will prompt you to restart the editor. That's totally okay. So just restart your editor, and when you do, you should see pixel streaming up here. And if you see pixel streaming up here, that means you are good to go and you're ready to package your build. Packaging your build is fairly straightforward. I go to Platforms, and then I go to Windows, and I select Package Project. If you receive some sort of error message, like your SDK is not set up, then I will share a link to our YouTube video on how to resolve the common issues that you can receive when setting up your packaged build. The SDK is one of them. So go ahead and select a location on where to package, and I will select my folder, and we will begin the packaging process. The reason why it did not work is probably because of the SDK not being enabled. Oh, we have a Monique, I think we have a question.
Just a quick question. That SDK thing, is that, I mean, I know I could look in the documentation, but just as a quick answer, is that solved by making the project C++?
So it doesn't solve by making the project C++. So this SDK is necessary for Blueprint or C++ projects. Okay, so once the package is built, then we can begin with the uploading process. Now, I've already gone ahead and packaged a build beforehand, so we're not waiting for it to package. And if anyone does not have a build that is packaged and ready to go, I will share a link where you can download this same package in the Zoom chat. I've shared that in the Zoom chat, and you can download this exact build. It's just it's the third third-person multiplayer, very basic Unreal Engine application, and you can use this to follow along the steps if you don't have your build. But of course, it's awesome if you use your own build for this process. Okay, so once we have our packaged build, the next step that we're going to do is to get it into Eagle's system. That's fairly easy to do. The first thing that I like to do is just go to eagle3dstreaming.com, and you can click on the free streaming now icon, which will take you to this page. Now, if you don't want to go through the website, I've also just shared that URL in the Zoom chat, which will also get you to this page. The next thing that we need to do once we're at this page is just create a new account. So I will go ahead and create my account. I've created a Gmail account for this purpose. So I'll enter in my email address, and then I will create a password and click sign up. You have to make sure that your password is secure, so I'm going to have to update my password a little bit. And then click sign up. And then the next thing that we need to do is to enter in our OTP code. And the way that we do this is if you'll go to your email, then you should see the OTP code within your inbox. So I'm just going to go to my inbox to grab my OTP code. And once I have grabbed my OTP code from the inbox, then I just click verify OTP. You should receive a message that says OTP is verified and you have created your account. I say OK. And now I can go ahead and log in using my new email address and password. So I'm going to enter in my email address as well as my password, and then click sign in. Once I arrive at this screen, it's now time to select my username. And the username is just, so it's the username that will be associated with your application. And so I'll pick a username. I'll just say Quintin E3DS demo. Okay, and then I will click save. All right, and now that I have my username, I can go ahead and log back in. And I'm just going to use my email to do so, and then I'll click sign in. And we should all now arrive at the control panel screen. And this is the dashboard that we will use to upload our Unreal Engine application. But I will pause here in case there are any questions, concerns. If anyone was not able to get to this screen, please let us know and we will make sure that you're seeing the same thing I am. So I'll just pause to see if there's any questions that came out of this, or if we're all good to go into the next step. Okay, I will take that as we are all seeing the same screen. If that's the case, then let's go ahead and upload our project. Before we do, let's take a look at what exactly we are uploading. So in this example that I have also shared in the Zoom chat, if we take a look and open this application, we'll notice that there are two groups of files. The first one is the actual build that you will receive from when I build from Unreal Engine Editor, and this will of course contain the Unreal Engine executable and the build files. The second thing that I also included, just because sometimes we get questions on this, is I also included a dedicated server. And if anyone is familiar with that term, that's typically what we use to identify the multiplayer server that's used if your application does have multiplayer. And the reason why I included it in here is just so that we can kind of get an understanding of what exactly we're uploading. So we will be uploading actually just the Unreal Engine build and not the dedicated server. And the reason is because we're just streaming our project and we're not focusing on multiplayer for now. But for those users that are interested in multiplayer, you could also upload your dedicated server to the platform, and we do have multiplayer capabilities that will automatically run your dedicated server application, but not the purpose of this. Not the purpose of this demonstration. All right, so I'm going to do this entire process from scratch, just so that we're all, kind of clear on what exactly we need to do. And then we will get to uploading. So I'm just extracting everything so that I can then compress it so that we can upload it into the platform. So let's just give it a little bit of time. While that's happening, I'll go over some key pieces of the control panel. The first thing that you'll see is a window, a component that we have which discusses or visualizes some important information. The first is status. With Eagle 3D, you get a free 7-day trial to stream your application. And that's the first information that you see is how many days are remaining in your trial. The second pieces of information are related to storage and minutes streamed. Storage is associated with how many Unreal Engine applications you've uploaded to the platform. For example, in my project, it's roughly, let's take a look. I think this is about 1 gigabyte, which means that once I upload this project, then it will show that I've utilized about 10% of my storage because the application is 1 gigabyte big. So we do provide that metric so you can know how much of your storage you're using. We provide you 10 gigabytes for free, and then you can always up your storage if you need more. The next thing is minutes streamed, and this metric is obviously important because we want to know how many minutes our applications are actually being streamed. So this number just corresponds to whenever you generate your streaming URL or URLs, how many minutes is this application actually being streamed to your end customers. Okay, so those are the key components here. The next is the section where we can add an application. And it's fairly straightforward. We just click here to add an application. And the next thing that we do is we want to then upload our zipped build. So if I go to all these files, then if you can imagine, these are the files that you would build from Unreal Engine Editor. I select all of them, and then there we go. So these are all the files that are built from Unreal Engine. So I select all of them, and then I right click and say compress to zip file. When I do that, I'll end up with a compressed zip file that looks like this. And that is what we actually upload to the platform. Sometimes we see just the executable uploaded, which won't work. Yeah, you'll need to select all of your built files and then compress that into a zipped folder. Okay, once I have that zipped folder, then I can just drag and drop it onto the platform. When I do that, I'll receive a notification of the name of the file, and if I'm happy, then I can go ahead and click Save. The next step that I see is some information associated with what I just uploaded. The first is how much storage is being used. In this case, it was only 355 megabytes, so 3.55%. And I also received the reminder that Pixel Streaming plugin needs to be enabled, which we made sure we did when we built our project. And the last thing is the application name. Now, there's two ways that we can do this. The first is, and what I tend to recommend is writing exactly the application name that you see right here into the app name. So I would actually write it as DS Test 2, and which matches the name of the Unreal Engine application. The reason is because the platform will first check to see if this application exists. If it does, then it will stream. If it doesn't find it, then it will then search for any other Unreal Engine executables. So the platform will still stream even if these names do not match, but I usually like to make them match just because it's a little bit quicker getting your application streaming. So now that I have all of this information, I then click Save, and the upload process will begin. And so, I'll share some more important information while the upload ends, and then I'll also pause again if anyone has questions. Hopefully, we are all uploading our application at this point. Or does anyone have any questions so far up until this point?
Yeah, hello. Hi.
Hi. Yes, sir.
Yeah, this is Gautam from India. So far, first of all, thank you for your well-presented workshop.
Mhm.
So already I have tried all these single-player things. So actually, I'm working in my travel agency. We are inevitably trying a metaverse-based virtual tourism. So currently, we are looking for a multiplayer pixel streaming,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So, so what do you feel we're facing certain challenges regarding related to multiplayer setups, right? So, I would like to know the depth and quality of your streaming overall outcome from Able 3D.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah, and also I'm expecting certain guidance to build a multiplayer game uh, application
Cool.
for Pixel Stream.
Cool. Great question. Okay, so let's talk about multiplayer for a second. Did I understand your question correctly? That first, you're wondering what is the quality of the stream, and secondly, how do we make our project multiplayer? Are those? Did I understand those correctly?
Yeah, exactly. That is what I was.
Okay. All right, so let's think about the quality of a stream. Can you think of or imagine any factors that may influence or impact what the quality of a stream could be?
Yeah, I've already tried that. Actually, quality of streaming is very nice. I was getting the ray tracing and luminance levels.
Hmm.
Certain rate, it was good value.
Cool. Yeah. So when we start talking about streaming quality, we need to unpack it a little bit in terms of how are we measuring quality. So, for example, when we're talking about ray tracing, lumen, nanite, all of those features that are available in 5.3 are also available, as it sounds like you've experienced with the platform. So, um, one thing that you could potentially do is create your desktop application and run that application and confirm that lumen if you're using Lumen or Nanite, is properly working in your desktop build. If you're happy with it, then we go to the next phase, which would be uploading it to the platform, and those same Lumen Nanite will still work when you're streaming. So in that way, the quality will match whatever you're doing in your desktop application. Your next question is even more awesome about multiplayer. And if I may, can we return to that question at the end, and I'll talk about some, we would consider this maybe a little bit more advanced feature. So we'll discuss multiplayer, how to enable multiplayer, things to how to do it, packaging your dedicated server, everything at the end, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, that's fine.
Cool. Thank you. Okay, so now that my application has fully uploaded, I now see my application appearing in the list of my apps. And I know that I have it because it lists the name of my app right here. The next thing that I'm going to do is actually generate my streaming URL. And your streaming URL is the URL that your users will use to access your application. An analogy that I like to use is, let's say you created a YouTube video. Well, how would you share that YouTube video with someone that you'd like to watch your video? The way you would do it is you would first upload that video to YouTube, and then you would create a URL from YouTube and share that with whoever you would like to watch your video. It works the exact same here in our platform. What we'll do is we will create a URL that can be shared, and anyone who has internet can then click on that URL to access the application. The way that I do that is I first click on my app, and you'll notice that there are no links. And the reason why is because we first have to create a streaming link in order to begin streaming on the platform. So the first thing I'll do is I will click Create New Link, which you can see right here. And the reason, or excuse me, now that we have our streaming link, we can look at a few interesting features. The first thing that you may notice is we have the name of your streaming URL, and then we have what we call as a config. And a config are, you can think of them sort of like presets that will, under which your application will stream. By default, the default config is used to stream your application, which means that out of the box you could just click play app and your application will play. But let's take a quick look at the configs so that we understand how these presets can be used to alter your stream. In order to do that, I have to first create a new config. And the reason that is because we can't edit the default config because it's the default. So if I want to modify the settings, first thing I'll do is I'll create a config, and I will choose a name, and then I will click add. Once I have a new config, I can click on the edit button, and I can now see my options available for streaming. The first screen that you'll see are more of what we call the common features. These are the features that most customers will like to tweak. If you are a little bit more comfortable with streaming in Unreal Engine, then we have lots of more features for you. So I'll get into the advanced features once we at least get our stream up and running. But I just wanted to mention that briefly. Okay, so we can, of course, set an expiration date for our URL. This is important when maybe you only want your stream active for a week, and then after that, you wouldn't like people to access your application. So the way I could enable that is clicking this button and then specifying a day when the link will expire. Or sometimes we don't want our URLs to be accessed by the public. and we need to require a password in order for the application to be accessed. If you would like to password protect your stream, just enable this feature and then type in the password of what you would like, what you would like to be for people to access your app. Another common feature is session time. If you can imagine, there could be an instance where someone's interacting with your stream in a browser and then they go grab a coffee or lunch with a friend and they leave your application running on their browser. So that we're not incurring unexpected charges, because pixel streaming is usually charged by the minute, but we do have a fixed price as well. If you're on a pay per minute plan, then you'll want to be able to control how long total sessions are so that you don't have someone who accidentally leaves a stream idle. Same thing, or another feature is browser resolution. And this is important because, it's very important at what resolution our applications are accessed. So you can choose dynamic as one option, and the stream will automatically adjust to the aspect ratio and resolution of your target device, or any device that is accessing your stream. But sometimes we actually don't want that. We want a fixed resolution. And if that's the case, then you can select custom and you can actually specify, the exact resolution that the app will run at no matter what. Another common feature is you can anonymize the URL so that it looks more of, like the URL you would see from YouTube, where it's just a random string of characters and letters. You can also establish an away from keyboard time, where if someone does walk away for 10 minutes, then you can, let's say someone's not active for 10 minutes, then you can set this for 10, and then a countdown will start checking to see if you're there, sort of like how Netflix works. After you watch 3 episodes, it asks if you're still there. This is the same idea, where if your user is not idle for a period of 10 minutes, for example, or you could change it to 45 or 4 or whatever you'd like, then a countdown will begin, and then it'll time out the user. Another common feature is whether or not you'd like to show the browser mouse. Some people, and when I say browser mouse, the mouse moving on my screen is what we consider the browser mouse, which means that this is the mouse on the user's side. But as some of you know, you can also have a cursor within your Unreal Engine application. And if you have a cursor, sometimes you don't want the browser mouse, because then you have 2 cursors and they kind of trail each other because of the latency. So to get around that whole thing, you can just enable or disable this based on your preferences. And some of you prefer the hovering mouse, which means that, and if anyone's played, a first-person shooter game or any, a lot of desktop applications, the mouse is actually locked in the screen, which means that no matter where I'm moving my mouse, if I move it across the entirety, up and down, then the stream just continues to move. Other people prefer that if I do a hovering mouse, that if I move my mouse outside of the desktop window, then the application stops responding. So you have options to do both. And that's the reason why we have configs, is because there's not a one-size-fits-all for streaming Unreal Engine applications. And the way that we approach it is you can customize your configs based on your preferences. Another thing that we see is you can have multiple configs. So, for example, if we just add a new config, or let's see, go back to this and add. Well, okay, let's try. Or here, we'll do it this way. There could be 2 types of configs that you have. You could have your default config, which is used for the majority of your customers, and then you could have a second config, which is used for development. And maybe you increase the session time on that config just to make sure that users aren't, or your development team probably needs more time in the application. So you can just increase this to maybe 30 or 20, 50 or 50 minutes for your dev team because they'll be in the application more. And then have your default config, which is used for the majority of your users. But anyways, I digress. We will take this first URL and let's stream it. So the way to do that is I'll actually just click play app. And then we will see the application loading. Did my browser freeze? It looks like my browser may have frozen. Interesting. So I may have to restart after this because it looks like my browser is not receiving my keyboard inputs, which is interesting. Anyways, I'll show this briefly and then I may have to restart my control panel. But you can see now by just clicking play app, we now have our application running. And what this means is we now have our UE app. It's streaming through the web and it's connected through a browser so that we can share our application with anyone that needs access to it. So again, I will pause here to see if there are any questions related to this step. Did everyone get their app up and streaming and working? Okay, we got a thumbs up from Gotham. Thank you. And Monique, I see that you, okay, and you are also celebrating. Cool. Anyone else? Everyone else is good, working fine? Okay, all right. So what I'm going to do is, for some reason, my browser is being weird, so I'm going to close it and then, oh, it was because of Chrome over here. Okay. All right. And Monique, I think we also had another question come through on the Zoom chat. Is that correct?
That is correct. We had a question asking, is a user able to renew their free trial if you don't use it? And secondary to that is, does the free trial support RTX technology? Thinking YouTube.
Yes. Okay, so and we're going to change this because we've heard this from a few folks where sometimes they create their free account and then they don't really have their project ready. So long term, we're not going to start the trial until you're ready to upload because yeah, sometimes trials created and it's like, well, I don't have a project, so what am I supposed to do? So that's long term. Short term is, just create another account. And I know it means, creating another email address, which, if you have another one, then that can be used. Or if you're like, well, I don't want to deal with all these email addresses, just submit a support ticket to support at Eagle, and I'll write this in the channel. Just submit a ticket to support at eagle3dstreaming.com and ask to restart your trial and say that I said it was okay. And then we'll make sure that you get your 7 days and you can freely test your app. RTX, yes. So any feature that you can think of in Unreal Engine, RTX, Lumen, Nanite, they all work in the trial, which means that whatever you would like to, so any feature that you would like to use in Unreal Engine will work in the trial.
Did we cover everything?
I think there was one more question from Mythreels in the Zoom chat. Or did we?
Yes. The platform count size for the zip file or the unzipped files. Also, can there be any number for projects as long as it stays within the 10 gigs? For example, if my project size is 100 megabytes, can I upload it roughly 100 projects?
Awesome question. So and you can kind of see this right here. It counted my zipped file and not my uncompressed. So let's maybe take a look and see what the uncompressed was. So I'll move that out of there. And what's the size of this? Yeah, so the real size is 895 megs, but my compressed is 363. And we can see that it's 3.5%. So it's actually counting the compressed size of the application and not the uncompressed, which is sweet because we can upload more projects. So that's awesome. The next question is, can I upload in number of projects? And the answer is yes. You can upload as many projects as you wish. So you could, so if you had 100 project sizes, so if your project size is 100 megs, then you could upload 100 projects, and you would have access to 100 projects. Interesting. I'm a little curious of the use case for 100 projects. Maybe you've got 100 clients, but yeah, you could do that if you wish. Okay, Monique, are we all caught up on the questions?
I believe we are all caught up.
Okay, I'm going to take a sip from my unusually large water bottle. And let's get into Gautam's question. How do we deal with multiplayer? Okay, so I'll kind of walk through the process of multiplayer, very, very high level, to establish the vision, and then I will suggest, if it's not clear, to connect with our support team who will be able to better answer. Unfortunately, I am not the most technical, or I am not technical. Let's just put it that way. So I will get the ball rolling for you guys, and then when it's time for the rubber to meet the road, where you're implementing multiplayer, I will show you how to connect with our support team who will rocket ship you through the multiplayer process. Okay. The first thing that...
I have one more follow-up question.
Sure.
How do you manage the mouse cursor within the player?
Mm-hmm.
And then what options do you have for embedding the player into another website? Options/features.
Got it. Okay. Gautam, I know we said we talk about multiplayer. I'm going to handle this question real quick, and then we'll get back to your thought. Okay, so how do we manage the mouse cursor in the player? There's two ways to do it. The first is create a config, and you'll have to create a new config rather than default because default you're not able to modify any of the settings. So the first step is creating a new config called with browser mouse. All right, so now we have our new config. The next thing you'll do is click Edit, and you have an option right here. And there's two options that you can do. You can either show this browser mouse by having this enabled, or you can check it off and this browser mouse will not be enabled. So I will, since this is my show browser mouse with browser mouse config, I will enable this and then I will click save. And then I will have a config with the browser mouse. Then I'm going to create a new URL and I will say without browser mouse.
Mm.
And I will now go into edit and I will disable this and click save. So now you have a version of your application with the browser mouse and without the browser mouse. Now, if you're wondering, well, what do we do with the browser mouse on the game side? So if you're, generally there's two options. One, you can hide the browser mouse on the game side, and I will see if I can pull up the documentation for that while we are chatting. So you can either hide the browser mouse on the game side, or you can have it showing, and it's total preference. Let's see if I can find documentation for this quickly for you. Okay. So here is the documentation for showing and hiding your game mouse cursor. And I will share this in the channel so that you have that. Personally, I would prefer hiding the game mouse and only showing the browser mouse because there's latency. And there's no way of us getting around latency. We're streaming over the internet. So it's generally a better experience to show your browser mouse and hide the game mouse because of latency. And your users will have and it depends on the application always, they will tend to have a better experience showing the browser mouse and the game mouse is hidden. But you can do either way. Can't access the documentation. Okay, so let me here I'll just convert this to a quick PDF for you, and then I will yeah. Let me just there we go. Okay. All right. So I just shared the PDF with you in the channel. Would like to have the entire documentation available if possible, not just that section. Yeah. So let's go into documentation real quick. And I am loading this. I think my internet's going a little slow because I have so many things running. But once the documentation URL loads, then I'll share it with you. And so yeah, so now you should have access to the entire documentation that's available. If it turns out you're missing something, then let us know. But you should have all the documentation which you can search here to answer your questions. Okay, your next question was, what options do you have for embedding? And there are a few. The first one is, let's go from easiest to hardest. And the easiest is also generally, so how we usually interact, or excuse me, so how, the quickest way for embedding is just to simply embed using an iframe. Here is the documentation on how to do that. But to quickly run through it, what you would do, and it's fairly straightforward, you would just copy the iframe embed code. So if we take a quick look at this, or let me copy. And we'll take a look. All right, so what this essentially does when I copy my iframe embed code is I get something that looks like this. And if you've ever embedded a YouTube video on a website or something like this, then this should be familiar to you. So the same way you embed a YouTube video onto a web page, you can also do that through this, what we call the iframe embed code. So this is option number one. And this is the quickest way to get your stream embedded into a website. Some people don't like iframes, and there are multiple reasons for that. But if you say iframe isn't for me, we want a more custom and catered solution, then we have both React and Angular options if you're familiar with React and Angular. So the way that we would get there is we would go to our documentation. And I will share this with you on how to embed a stream into a web page not using iframe. And this will provide you guidance on how to embed. Now, the good thing is there's a lot more control and customization that's possible, but usually you'll have to be comfortable with React or Angular to do this sort of embed.
And Quintin, we are at about the 7-minute mark.
Yes. Let's handle Gautham's question.
And I have another one that just came through, so let me know when you're ready.
Okay. Let's get Gautam his answer. Okay. All right. So the first thing, Gautam, that you'll want to do is to start with our multiplayer documentation. Because what you'll of course need to do is build your dedicated server. So if you go to our documentation and type multiplayer, then you'll get information on how to set up your project for multiplayer. The first thing to keep in mind is you'll have to package your dedicated server. And there's a lot of cool videos on YouTube on how to do this, so we've just provided links right there. And we also have a free open source project that will allow you to immediately start with your, here it is, immediately start with integrating multiplayer into your project. So here is the Unreal Engine project, and you can just grab this and use this as a starting point to have all the multiplayer properly configured. So you'll implement the multiplayer pieces into your project. Then once that's done, you'll build it. You'll build your dedicated server build. And then once that is done, then you'll go to your control panel and you'll upload your dedicated server. Now, for those who have been following us, you know that we recently released this new control panel and we don't have all of the features migrated over to it. So Gautam, for you, since you are interested in multiplayer, for the time being, you'll have to use our old control panel. So just click on Go to Old Control Panel. Then go to Dedicated Server Apps, and then upload your dedicated server here.
Thank you so much, Quintin. Actually, I'm facing difficulties in setting up the dedicated servers. So I think exactly I have to focus on that. Soon, we'll catch up regarding the stream.
Okay, with challenges setting up your or packaging, setting up and packaging your dedicated server.
Yeah, that's what I'm facing. So we have probably certain YouTube video links regarding how to package a dedicated server in Unreal Engine, right? So I follow all those things, and also the Bitbucket sample
Okay.
projects also.
Okay.
Yeah, I follow all this.
Okay. So if you're following along with the documentation and you're stuck, what I would suggest is have you reached out to our support team yet?
Still haven't reached the team.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. No. It's all good. So I've shared our support email in the chat. Just let them know that you are here at our workshop. You're following along with our documentation and you're running into challenges, and we'll help sort them for you to make sure that you're up and running.
Yeah,
Multiplayer,
sure.
yeah, it can be tricky the first time just because there's so many things. So I think if you let us know where you are in the process, then we'll get you through that blocker and streaming.
So from your side, I have a doubt that you guys will be rendering a single environment application file and allowing the multiple players into the single environment.
Mhm.
That is how you, or because we do not want to spin up the multiple servers for individual concurrent users, right?
You
So,
Well, you will. So let's say that you have 5 people in your multiplayer project. You'll need 6 virtual machines, 5 for each user and 1 for the dedicated server.
yeah. So, but what kind of solution I'm expecting through this overall pixel streaming technology is rendering a single application. So where we will have an entire environment and interaction pods or gamified pods will be programmed as per our game development pod. So just adding up the players, adding up the multiple players into the single environment. So, for example, for I can say like that, we'll be having a certain separate front end. So where we will allow the players through a page, and that page will carry them into our environment. Right? So such kind of solution I'm expecting because spinning up multiple servers even for multiplayer setup is not right because a standalone application will also do the same, like spinning up the 6 servers for 5 players.
Mhm.
That is how the standalone app will also work, right?
The standalone app, yes. So your standalone application will be running on the what we call the streaming server.
Yeah, multiple server virtual machines will be spin, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so okay, better I will do the dedicated server setup and contact the support team
Yes, please
regarding
do.
the methods.
Because we do have it set up to where everyone will click the same link and our backend will automatically manage your servers and the allocation and getting everyone connected. So so you won't have the headache of trying to manage and orchestrate all of that yourself. you'll just share a URL, and when anyone clicks that URL, they'll automatically be able to see each other in the multiplayer environment.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
awesome. Really
Thank you.
quickly.
Yeah, thank you for joining.
So we have two more questions in addition to Mithrils. What are the absolute project limits for Eagle 3D, i.e. max CCUs, project scale, etc.? And the example here is it possible to pixel stream a part of a city over 100 CCUs? Thinking YouTube.
Yeah. So the answer is yes. We have worked with multiple governments around the world who are doing something similar to this. So in terms of your project size, we've streamed 100 gigabytes before, more. So project size can, be that high, and in our enterprise plan, we offer unlimited CCUs. So what that means is that if you need 100 CCUs, 1,000 CCUs, 10,000 CCUs, we can actually take care of whatever number you have in mind. So we have an enterprise plan, and your CCU limit can be whatever you wish. When you're working with an application that size, usually we're involved in the project just from the standpoint of helping make sure that the application runs properly, because that is a pretty big app if you're thinking that big. But we definitely serve those big of projects.
Okay. And then there's a bit of confusion between user instance and stream and what you call CCU. How can we better understand the price for one instance if we're targeting more than 100 users at the same time?
Yeah. So, and that's a good question. And user instance, stream, and this and that. It's simultaneous users. Is perhaps the most straightforward way of thinking about it. So if you have 100 simultaneous users all connected and they each stream 10 minutes, then you're at 100 times 10, so that would be 1,000 minutes total. So what we look at is just the total number of users that have connected, and we multiply that by our price per minute, and that's how you can determine the cost for streaming. So if you're looking at enterprise plans, it's always price per minute, which means that, and it doesn't matter if people are connected simultaneously or one at a time. If you're trying to ballpark price, then it's just the total number of minutes streamed across all users times 10 cents. We do have another option though. If you don't want to just pay per minute and you don't want to have any of that, we do have an unlimited plan. So it's kind of like a cell phone, unlimited plans, and you don't want to pay for minutes. And they start at $100 a month, and that's per concurrent user, or also known as simultaneous users. So if you have a 3 concurrent user plan, then anyone in the world can use those licenses, as long as up to 3 people or less are connected. So you pay a flat rate of $100 a month per concurrent user, or also simultaneous user. And that price does not change whether you stream 10,000 minutes, 100,000, 10 minutes, doesn't matter. So that's hopefully that made things more clear and not less clear.
And tied to all of this, do you cover the Western European region, thinking London?
We do. So we have a data center in Europe. We have a data center in North America, and we also use cloud providers. So we have lots of customers in London, and we can definitely take care of that.
Awesome. And then one last set of questions from Mithrills. How many concurrent users can join an experience, and how long is the load time? Can we DD videos while the project is loading?
Yeah. Great questions. So, first question is, how long or excuse me, how many? So,
Mhm.
the answer is, if you need unlimited, we got you. So we have an unlimited plan. You can have as many as you want. Um, Now, in regards to load time, you can also have you have a few options. You can do, what we call our standard load time, or you can have accelerated, and so you can have your application load faster. And yes, so you can have a video playing while your application is loading. You simply go to your config, enable the advanced options, go to loading screen, and then you can pick. You can have an image, so you can have your logo and branding, or your customer's logo and branding, or you can just pick a video. So you can definitely just have a video also playing while your application's loading.
Awesome. And I believe we have just a couple more. I think you captured this, but how many GPUs do you have available and how much per minute on each? And do you support Linux packages?
Yeah. So we have lots of GPUs, plenty. We do have two data centers ourselves, and then if we need, mega scale like 10,000, then we usually deploy your system partly on our data center and partly on a cloud provider like AWS or GCP or CoreWeave. So um, we've got you covered if no matter what scale you're thinking of. And Linux, yes. So we do support Linux. It's very, very new, early days for us. So if you would like to stream a Linux project, it would you'll have to connect to our support team so that we can properly set it up for you. So Linux is early days for us, but we're preparing. We were waiting for the market to say it's time for Linux, and now it's happening. So, yes, it's early days. So, I would suggest connecting with our support team if you're trying to stream on Linux.
And also tied to that, can you choose which type of GPUs you use for your applications?
You sure can. So, if you are
Recording stopped.
if you're working with one of our enterprise plans, then you can tell us what GPU you want. Yes, and no, not with same pricing. So, if you pick, an A40 or, one of the biggest GPUs, then that will have an impact on pricing. So, yeah, so, keep that in mind. This pricing is for the 10 cents a minute is for, the A10 or comparable to so the A10, which is roughly a 3070, but if we're going with some, mega GPU, then we'll probably have to have a discussion about what's best.
We have one more question that came through in the chat. How do you minimize latency worldwide?
Cool question. So the way that we deal with that is a system that we have developed called geolocation. And the way it works is fairly straightforward. I've got a diagram, which I'll bring up. No, why is it not opening? What? Let's see if this works. Okay. I had a cool picture. So essentially, if you're talking about worldwide deployment, what we will do is we will have servers set up for you in the regions of the worlds that you're targeting. So let's say you want to do North America, UK, and South Korea. The way we would approach that project is we will have servers placed in all of those regions. And then we have what we call a smart routing system, where it'll be a single URL. So you'll share the URL, just one URL, and the system will automatically route the user to the closest region. So if we see that they're coming in from UK, then they'll get a UK server. And by placing servers in all of your targeted regions and using our smart routing system. That's how we help reduce. Yeah, you're trying to minimize latency. Yeah, so that's how you minimize latency. You basically have to get the servers as close as possible to your targeted users.
Did we capture everything, Clay?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. I think that captures everything. That was a great Q&A. Lots of really great questions that piggybacked on each other.
Yeah,
Is there
those
anything
are awesome
else you'd
questions.
like to touch? Great questions.
I'm happy if everyone else is happy.
Yeah, Quintin, this was a nice session with you, David Sweeney. Thank you so much for your fine presentation.
Cool. No, thank you for saying that. Yeah, we're just trying to add, give you as much information as possible.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone so much for joining our webinar on how to stream your Unreal Engine app on Eagle 3D. And until next time,
All right.
thank you for joining.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Monique.
You're welcome.